Welcome to Stormwatch by Gray Noise Intelligence. Each week, we drop the latest info on what's happening at Gray Noise, Census, and Vulncheck. Take a look at a roundup of important and timely cybersecurity topics, toss out some expert opinions, and drop the occasional conspiracy theory. Today, the crew grills Himija about her new census report on the sorry state of the Internet of Healthcare Things, starting with that acronym. If you already weren't depressed by seasonal affective disorder in the Northern Hemisphere, this segment should help push you over the edge. We then explore the pantsing of U.S. law enforcement by Chinese hackers who took advantage of a daft mandatory backdoor to compromise pretty much every ISP in the country. And of course, we'll showcase the latest blogs from Grey Noise and Voncheck and take a peek at Sisakev if time affords. And I hope we do, because I got a fun little thing at the end if we do have time for that. And yeah, so what's up with the backgrounds, guys?
A little birdie said that today's your birthday. Is that true?
I can neither confirm. No, yeah, it's true. Yeah, it's true.
Happy birthday.
I thank you.
It is your birthday.
It is your birthday. Oh no, it is your birthday.
And
that's your gift.
And Glenn predicted that I could not guess where the background came from, but it is from The Office, and I guessed it on first try. So,
I mean, cool honestly, that's a pretty big step for you. So,
it is. It is. So we are going to get.
How many episodes of The Office have you watched?
12, I think.
That's more than I expected.
Yeah, okay. All right.
We were paying attention.
That was
Did you like run through the index of Office episodes in your brain? Like, what just happened?
Yeah, I have a visual eidetic memory that I can replay like temporarily, so I have to actually go. It's like a
shocker.
So yeah.
Also, who knows if any of this is true? So there's no way to prove it.
Oh, okay.
What's on the agenda, Bob?
What's on the agenda? Well, like first, on the agenda is I want to get to know you guys a little bit more, like we tried to do. And we have a
question.
We have a fun question to start off with, and we have to go with Glenn first because he steals everybody else's.
I forgot about this. What was the question?
Oh gosh, Glenn, you there?
Yeah.
Okay. If you could have a conversation with any version of yourself from the past, which would you choose and what would you discuss?
This feels very personal, but it would be going back to like high school me and being like, the things you think matter zero, or the people that you think matter the most matter zero. Kind of setting the stage in that way.
Okay. Like what specifically, what from the matter standpoint?
Like in high school you have different you put certain types of people on a pedestal and you think that that's like the right way or the proper or the cool way or whatever, and then you fast forward 5-10 years and those people are I don't know. I'm going to make someone upset if I keep talking. So,
okay. All right.
Glenn, were you a bully in high school?
I was not a bully.
Can anyone confirm or deny in the comments?
Someone
from the past.
If anyone that knows Glenn, just let us know, please. About that. All right.
I hope no one from high school is watching this. That would be terrible.
All right. We shall progress forward from this. And Himija, we'll go next since we're going to be grilling you in a little bit anyway. Same question.
Good morning. I would 1000% go back and visit myself from elementary school, like probably maybe I think age 7, because I was hilarious. That's when my humor peaked. I was.
But you still.
Yeah.
I was hilarious with no filter, so even more funny.
And that's different than now. How's that different from now? I don't.
She was hilarious with a brighter light, a more optimistic tone.
There you go.
Wait, are you saying Himija does not have a bright light right now?
She's seen too much.
The wattage varies. But
it's a 3-way bulb or whatever where you adjust like low, medium, high.
Yeah.
A dimmer switch. It's fine.
Dimmer
Sometimes
switch.
you're all the way.
Probably.
Sometimes you just got to bring it down.
Yeah. Are you a smart dimmer switch or just like a old fashioned? I don't mean. Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
I'm not smart switch. I'm not connected to the internet now. But
Okay.
Okay.
Are you IoT?
absolutely not.
Oh man. All
Yeah,
right.
that's what
I
I would
might
do.
regret this question now. Cool. All right. Emily, these say good morning and what the same question for you?
Hello, good morning. I think I would go back to myself right before my first marathon. I'd be like, don't do it. Because I was really injured and I did it anyway, which caused a lot of stupid complications that I could have avoided. And I just made like really dumb choices. Like I wasn't prioritizing,
Cool.
longevity and like doing the healthy thing. So yeah, I'd probably go back and be like, girl, don't do it. Like it's not, there will be others. Don't do it.
So you got injured
Fair.
on your very first marathon?
The training cycle. Yeah.
That's
I mean, I
awesome.
started like at the start line. I was hurt very bad.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I mean, it's fine. I got over it. But
When is the movie
you?
coming out about your
Clearly.
sports journey?
Wow.
With the slow mo and the music, the building
Yeah, I can hear
dramatic
it already.
music.
hopefully never.
The Celine Dion playing.
All the other co-hosts are at the finish line, like cheering in slow motion.
Redemption.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I am now going to turn to the person who makes this all possible and has it go smoothly. And Overwatch says, senior in high school, I won't tell you exactly what I'd say, but it would be around caring less about what people think and doing more around what's best for you. Cool. Very cool.
That's kind of what I was trying to get to. That's better said.
Well, that's a given. Anyway, so I was initially going to tell my college self to not do cyber. That was my first thought.
I have a
veto that.
question about
Wait, hold on.
this.
Just but before you can grill me in a second. I actually thought about it. Like because I had the question, so I was thinking of it longer than you guys were, and I was gonna do that because cyber's been weird and horrible and good and what it's been a range of things. But the main reason why I decided not to go with that one is I wouldn't have met you guys, and I would be sad. So I did not choose that one. But unfortunately, like I think I did have something similar to Glenn and to Overwatch, not like super younger self, so still maybe like in college, but I think I would have told myself that all the stuff that you were told about how to fit in at work, because I probably wasted a good 5 years of trying to fit in at work. And obviously, I don't do that anymore, but I would not have wasted those 5 years doing that. And I don't know where I would be right now, but like I think that's what it, because for everyone out there, like don't like, I mean you can if you want to. That's a fine choice if you do, but honestly, you're better off just being you at wherever place you are. If fitting in at work is you, that's cool. But I would just maybe so you want to challenge my cyber thing or ask me deep questions about cyber?
I was just going to be really sad if you weren't in cyber. I think you made it. I mean, you've made a lot of impact, more than probably most. So
fun
that'd
fact.
be a loss for the world.
I don't know if we've talked about this on here, but like when I moved into security, I came to security from the data science and analytics world. And when I got to my desk on the first day of my security job, my boss handed me a book that was called Data Driven Security and was like, here, I think you'd like this. And so I'm just gonna leave that there because yeah.
Oh.
Impact. Yay.
Aw, thank you. I'm going to turn off the sentimental music now before I start crying. All right. So for everyone out there who's joined us live, you already know this, but in case you don't, we do have a podcast, and Overwatch especially would love it if you went to that little tab and like hit your email address in there and subscribe so that we could stay in communication with you and like and subscribe all the things on all the channels that we might have out there. That would be very beneficial. And I got to find my Safari browser window real quick. There we go. And before we just kick into what were the meat of the show today, I just felt the need compelled. I mean, it is my birthday, so I can do what I want to do. And this hit hard when I found out yesterday that Ward Christensen died. I mean, fairly good run, 78, not bad. And I mean, I think like where I am right now is a good run too. So like I wouldn't actually mind like shoving off this mortal coil. And Of all the people here, actually, I should ask you guys this: how many people use BBSs?
Uh, I was
Full
on
up
the very tail end. Yeah.
dial-up modem BBSs things. So I figured Glenn might be the since he's older than both of you 2.
Yeah, it was very, very short-lived because then it was kinda like AOL just kinda came in, and then it's just, like, so much easier. But, like, dialing
Ugh.
into BBS just also, like, we had one phone line. I mean, I'm sure everyone had the same problems. Like, it was my dad, like, worked he was self-employed, so the phone was, like, gold. Like, "Do not stay on the phone," so it was kind of a hard.
Would you get knocked off if someone called? Because that was kind of the
Well,
like.
no, because there was no call waiting. At least we didn't pay for call
Oh,
waiting.
okay.
So if I was online, then he just wouldn't get jobs. So that
Oh, yeah. Oh,
that
yeah,
worked out
kids out
well.
there, we had to pay for call waiting on the land copper lines. Just remember, like, I know nobody knows what this is right now, but back in the day, yeah, we actually had to do that.
Yeah.
My first modem was an acoustic coupler, which that's how much I remember these days. Because my parents did not, like, invest in, push button phones for a very long time, so we had rotary phones. Yeah. Yeah,
I did
that's the
not have
dial
that.
for everybody out there, that's the dial phone thing, in case you don't know what that is out there. Go ahead, Emily. Go ahead.
RIP. Pour one
Go
out
ahead.
for a warning.
No, no thoughts, no comments.
No thoughts you can say because you have thoughts. It's obvious you have thoughts.
No,
So
like I just don't even. I don't.
okay. Also, BBS does not mean BlackBerry in this context. In case BlackBerry systems, BBS. No,
Oh,
But
nothing.
wasn't it
alright.
BBM?
I'm
BlackBerry
I'm moving
Messenger?
on. I'm moving on to the heart
I
of the
don't know.
show.
There's no way to know.
With the heart of the
I
show is
lived through it.
Hemija. Oh, no.
Blast from
Yes,
the
like, we
past.
yeah,
This is
so
what
the
happens when
heart
we didn't have a show last week. We're all like,
and also it didn't sync yesterday because like, a couple of us had the day off, whereas Census, like, works their people to the bone
yeah, we have no
apparently.
idea what's going on.
So,
Why don't y'all
yeah.
tell us?
Alright, so, you see, we are gonna talk about security. Are we done with all the SML stuff and everything? The Hemija and Census, which are one and the same, did an
It's true.
amazing report. They are. I got to read this report yesterday, and I was telling Hemija this morning that I I did not like, it's a great report, but it made me feel really bad afterwards, because of how well but it was written really well, but because of the content, even though I used to scan the internet and find similar things, the volume and the presentation and everything was just at a point where, like, this is pretty sad. So, I'm gonna switch off of this first, and I'm just gonna let Hemija talk for a little bit about what the actual report is, to see if we can do that. So, Hemija, could you let us know a little bit about what you wrote, and then we'll dig into it a little more, and we can scroll around, and I can show things if you want me to show things.
Yeah. So the report name really rolls off the tongue, the global state of internet of healthcare things, exposures on public facing networks. But what it's really about was me deciding to basically use census data and see what I could find that kind of fell into this realm of like internet connected medical devices, healthcare applications, proprietary healthcare software. Specifically trying to find the things like the low hanging fruit. Like if I were evil, which is a very good thing for everybody that I'm not yet. Um, if I were evil, what would I try and breach? What would I immediately go for? And I did find a lot more than I expected. A lot of uh, kind of things in the realm of this should not be exposed on the internet. It has no business. There's no business value to it being exposed on the internet. Um, Legacy protocols, kind of things that I expected to find, um, like DICOM, which we'll go more into. But I think on the other side, and I think this is important to talk about because we often talk about security risks in terms of vulnerabilities, right? In terms of CVEs. Less common is talking about exposures, I think, because exposures are more proactive, right? It's not on fire yet, but it's kind of like sitting there waiting to be found by the wrong person, not to cause FUD. So we also kind of found these exposures of EMR and EHR systems or electronic medical record systems, which are things that are designed to be publicly accessible. Um, but not in the way that a lot of them are currently. So we can talk more about that.
Did you coin the acronym, or is this an existing acronym? Like, because like if you coined it, you added to the acronym pollution of the planet. Just to throw that out there.
The IoHT thing.
Yeah, HT thing.
I
Yeah.
did not coin it, and I deeply regret having to use it. I admit. But I
That's
feel
like
like it's hard to describe. I was searching like high and low for, because my original title was like medical devices and healthcare systems and applications and also databases, and that just wasn't cutting it.
That'd be a great title.
Yeah, I'll turn it into a slam
Yeah.
poem for you.
Awesome. Perfect.
we got to start using turn these acronyms into the hot to go song.
Yes,
There we
the
go.
new YMCA for the people.
Yeah.
So you all can please feel free to grill him and Jay as well. So what was the most disturbing finding for you?
I think the most disturbing finding was that most of the exposures were DICOM exposures, and I haven't explained what that is yet, so I will now. DICOM, I don't know what it stands for. Another acronym for the dump, but it is basically a 30-year-old protocol that is used as both a file format for storing medical images that come from scanners like MRI scanners, CAT scanners, radiology servers. And it is also the name for the actual protocol used to transmit those. Thank you. Thank you, Gray Noise IO. It's also the protocol used for transmitting those between kind of these like giant machines and hardware and user-facing computers so that clinicians have an easier time analyzing them. It is super old, and like a lot of things from that bygone era, it's not meant to be secure. It doesn't have authentication by default. A lot of times it is it's susceptible to attacks. Like you can embed malware in it in certain cases. Like there's lots of ways to hack DICOM, and there are lots of published things about how to do that. But I was really concerned to find that in particular because I noticed that in a lot of cases with kind of these DICOM, either the protocol exposures or the kind of web-facing interfaces, they would explicitly advertise one who they belong to. It would be like University of Narnia, DICOM server, or it would explicitly say what was insecure about its configuration. And I think you have an example of that in the slides, but it would say stuff like, hey, by the way, this DICOM server does not have does not have authentication. And yeah, this one, it doesn't have authentication. It uses default passwords, stuff like that. And the fact that you can kind of directly access an interface like this and query a database, and a lot of times I found things where, obviously I didn't include them in the report, but I found things that weren't fully redacted, that still had like patient last names in them instead of, and like MRNs and things. And I think it's hard to over exaggerate how much this is not like a what if risk, because we see these things happen all the time. Literally, I was checking the list of like healthcare breaches reported to the OCR, and it's like there's like new ones every day, and a lot of the times you see, like, for example, there was that terrible story last year where medical images of breast cancer patients were leaked, I think by Black Cat. And I think that suit like just settled. So like things like that, like it's going to happen. And I'm worried that the people who are responsible for administering these devices either don't know that they're exposed, which I'm guessing is more likely the scenario, or they just don't have the wherewithal to figure out how to harden them.
I think you have a figure in the report, and I could scroll to it, but I think it's something like 59 million patients data exposed. How did you get that number? I was really curious how you got that number.
So I don't recall that figure. How did you get that figure?
Just try to find it. You know what?
I don't doubt it.
I'm trying to find where that is now. Oh, you know what? I think I was looking at So it wasn't just your thing. It was one of the because you have a bunch of reference links in there. So I think I must have gotten that from one of those links on there,
Mm.
versus you guys had it in your report. Yeah. Sorry about that.
Yeah, there's a lot of other
But
research
but but
on
but that's
DICOM.
crazy. Like, is like, so and I just need to validate this, and for folks that, like, just scroll back if you're looking at this online, and, like, we'll try to, like, you can just go to the report and look at the one, image for the Orthanc, which is a hilarious name for a server. Um, did it have that insecure banner? Like, that you didn't add that, like, that was their big.
That was on the majority of that type of interface that I found too.
So
So it's like they
so
left
hashtag
debug.
vendor tried.
Vendor tried,
Yeah.
I suppose.
What was that, Emily? I spoke over you.
No, I was just saying it's sort of like they left debug mode on. And
Yeah,
didn't.
verbose.
Yeah.
And obviously
And
some of these might belong to like research labs or things like that,
mhm.
right? But when I
How
did
many do you
do,
think do?
I don't think a lot do. I did obviously we didn't publish like exact organizations, but I was able to attribute about 40% of the total exposures to like a real world organization. Most of them are giant hospital networks, which makes sense. Those are the types of networks that are hardest to actually like administrate. But and like university healthcare systems, and then the rest were like a smattering of like specialty clinics, so like orthopedics and radiology, and like, these small things like dotted all over mostly the U.S., but also all over the world.
So, like, if these really big healthcare systems can't get it right, I know there are lots of like small rural medical facilities, like, that maybe don't have all those resources. Like, maybe they're kind of winning because they don't necessarily have the network complexity. But like, if these big, arguably well resourced organizations can't get it right, like, what's the outlook for kind of everybody else? Like, what are these other systems supposed to do?
Depressing episode incoming. Yeah. So that was my thought as well. Particularly because um like rural hospitals and those smaller practices I noticed would more often be on kind of the like telecom or ISP networks, or more residential IPs rather than the majority of those big ones were on like enterprise or cloud or like managed things. And my twistedly optimistic take is that hopefully smaller practices will not be as much of a target for actors, given that they guard less data just due to the nature of their scale. Um, but yeah, I don't know.
One thing, like, and while not necessarily tied to the IoT or like the healthcare IoT particular, but let's not forget that Change Healthcare was multi-factor. Like when it was compromised, it was because they didn't have MFA enabled. So we're not even talking about issues related to like how they implement these technologies or these old technologies, but then it goes as far as even when they do implement newer technologies, they still don't like utilize all of the options and controls available to them, even
Well, I
if they're best
well
practice.
well, I mean, there wasn't even A. Like, forget MFA, like, wasn't even A for, like, a
True.
bunch of
Yeah.
these.
MF. Yeah. Well, let's go with that. The MF compromise. Change compromise. So it's what do you think about kind of the order of accountability when it comes to like okay, let's use the healthcare area. How much accountability is on for security is on the actual like provider? How much is on the hospital system or whatever you call that of the provider? How much of it is on the vendor? Do the ISPs, because I think in the report you mentioned how many of these are like on cloud providers. Um, at what point do cloud providers start having some sort of accountability in these like configuration scenarios?
I'm gonna start with who I think is not accountable. And as part of this, I spent a lot of time on Reddit kind of trying to get perspectives from the people who have to administer these every day, but also from like all parts of it, right? From people who run these kind of managed networks, and also to the people who work in hospital admin. And the one group I do not blame is the actual IT, admins who are in charge of administering these. Healthcare is a super conservative industry, and by that I mean it's very resistant to change. They have to have a ridiculous ratio of uptime compared to a lot of other industries. They can't afford really to have systems go offline for any reason. And they're also working with some of the most stressed out people on the planet, trying to get them to have their printers working and things like that. So I can understand why this would fall to the bottom. But saying that, and I know we love to avoid like pointing fingers here, but I think the squeeze is coming from how these admins and how hospitals are restricted when it comes to choosing software, right? Most EMR and EHR software does not even support MFA. Like Epic, thankfully, is an exception, but most of them do not even support it. You have to like rig up your own solution. And that I think does fall to a vendor, right? Especially when it comes to like knowing that you're creating a solution that is protecting like HIPAA data. I think we can hold higher standards for vendors to make sure that it's secure by default. We always say it's secure by default, but it really has to start there, because I see all this discourse about IT folks wanting to harden these systems and wanting to use a secure option, but just not finding that in the space.
That's fascinating that you're like the perspective on it is like we actually want to do the right thing, but like the options we have don't allow us to necessarily do the right thing, or we have to kind of like build our own solution, which like who has the time and resources to do that, as you mentioned. That's wild.
It's wild that the most expensive thing in the US is healthcare. So as a patient, you see like how many dollars are just going into the system. So you just kind of expect like unlimited resources for them. But then we know, oh, actually, it was the Change Healthcare thing again, right? Where like providers weren't getting paid for 2 months and then they couldn't pay their bills. Like we learned during, or I learned during that a lot of these providers are basically paycheck to paycheck as far as accounts receivable and accounts, paying their bills. So like it's just wild to see, like, on one hand, how much monetary resources go into healthcare in the US. And then on the other hand, see how little of that gets to protecting the patients and the data and the infrastructure that provides all of that care. That's no bueno. I don't like that.
I want to ask maybe two more questions, and you guys can ask more too if you want. But we do have another topic to go to. So there's a lot of exposure in the US, like duh, right? Because we have a lot of internet and like we seem to be the most exposed stuff for lots of things out there. So it's like 6,884 medical asset exposures. And I noticed in the report, as you guys always do, which I don't envy you this, because it's hard and it's time consuming, but you do try to reach out as much as possible whenever you do find bad things and get to people who can maybe take care of it. So so question number one is like, how many people responded back to you? I know it's a low number. I don't. It's a depressing show. It's fine. And then I guess the second thing is, have you thought about, since that's a lot of exposure in the US, reaching out to the Department of Health and Human Services and saying, "Hey, here's some data you might want to go do stuff with."
Yeah, absolutely. This is like this step is actually my favorite step, is responsible disclosure. And Emily might remember it, like literally the first week I started at Census, I was like, so do we reach out to anybody about this data or do we just hoard it? Yeah, we worked with CISA and we worked with the DHS, and they were both extremely helpful partners on this front. I think, again, healthcare is really top of mind right now. It has always been, but especially right now with all these new ransomware gangs coming out. And we did get responses. I don't have an exact number for you, because it's still kind of like an ongoing thing. But we have mostly gotten responses from sort of these like healthcare vendors. So which is really awesome, like the software vendors, right? Trying to work with us to figure out how they can help reach out to like their on-prem customers and their like other customers too, which I think is really awesome, because again, like that's the kind of collaboration that that I think can actually make a change. And a lot of other folks are kind of reaching out mostly to try and understand what they can do about it, which is really awesome. Like, I'm glad that there's a clear call to action here. I think when it comes to actual, like those, again, those like rural and smaller providers, that's where the outreach has been the most difficult, because you never even know if the security at is the right security at, or if they monitor it. But I'm hopeful that like by having these like larger bodies come and like try and do dissemination that way, that we'll start to see some more responses on that front.
That was a brilliant move going to the vendors, because they're gonna, like, unless it's a no offense to, because we do have some sales folks from Very Nice on the live stream. Like, no one's gonna pick up the phone for a salesperson, but if someone from tech or whatever reaches out to them, that might actually do some good. It sounds like it is doing some good. Adrian, this is a good point. When Mark Andreessen wrote a follow-up post on his Software is Eating the World essay, 10 years later, he said his predictions were right, except for healthcare, which did not evolve at all. Wow.
You would think that there'd be heavy incentive too in the vendor to migrate to secure by default, just because of, as we've seen with trends of breaches lately, it's organizations are now very quick to name the product or the manufacturer of the product of the problem, with Snowflake or Microsoft or whatever. Like, so there's also a great incentive for the providers and the vendors to at least move in that direction, so that perhaps they're not thrown under the bus, in the first 5 minutes of a breach. Not that I'm saying that they shouldn't be thrown under the bus, just
I think I see that happening. Like, that has come up in a couple of our conversations. I think the pressure is starting to be felt when it comes to like brand reputation and not wanting to be one of the many examples that have been made of.
I can't imagine being an Avanti salesperson right now trying to get a renewal. Just saying.
It's Avante on the show. Thank you very
Avante.
much. Yeah. All
Fragile.
right. So, anything else you want to say about the report, Hemija, besides everyone should go read it if you haven't already?
Um, I would say like continue to get curious about the types of technologies that you use, as always, and it doesn't have to be a black box. When it comes to like to actually deploying these things, my heart goes out to the people who are in charge of like configuring them and things like that. But I don't know. I'm optimistic about where we're moving. Like, I think this is the one of the few industries where you really, really see the impacts happening every day. And I think the government is also starting to notice. So I have high hopes for where we'll be in a couple years.
Wow,
Well,
optimism. We
yeah,
end the segment with
you're on the wrong
optimism.
show.
Yeah. All right. Well, the next one can depress us more too. I think, Glenn, you might have been one of the ones that shared this internally when we were looking for things to during our normal like culling of topics to try to figure out what we're going to do. This is the 30-year-old internet backdoor law that came back to bite. Can you give a quick overview as to what this was, Glenn?
Oh man. So 30 years ago, when we were talking about BBSs, just kidding. There was a big push to install. So the Clipper chip was invented in '93. CALIA, which is the legislation that essentially mandates that all systems, I'm going to get the verbiage wrong, but like internet, phone, whatever, must be wiretappable. And I had a little experience with this, like in a previous role at a large university. We were the ISP for the university, so we always had to keep CALIA in our mind for when we did infrastructure changes and stuff like that. So it was kind of a weird relationship there. But essentially, so there's legislation in the U.S. And other countries, but the one we're talking about right now is in the U.S. 30 years ago that mandated that things have a backdoor essentially. And so that's existed for all this time. Obviously, has been used extensively, especially in the early 2000s with 9/11. Like Patriot Act expanded some of these abilities, but there's always been that wiretappable portion to the telecom infrastructure in the U.S. And then, so that's kind of been hanging out. Everyone forgot about it, chilling. And then we started hearing about the different typhoon attacker groups. The latest being Salt Typhoon, which was the news was broke. Was it 1 week or 2 weeks ago? A few weeks ago, about compromising the telecoms and by way of or in somehow involving the wiretap systems of these ISPs through some vulnerabilities. So basically, 30 years ago, they mandated a thing that, fast forward, the thing that all of the security practitioners warned against and feared was proven to be true, which is it was used for nefarious, even more nefarious means, because you can debate what their legit use is used for. And yeah, so that's been kind of all the rage in the last few weeks. There's a few things that have impacted kind of this conversation. Let's not forget. So, like I mentioned, 2001, like 9/11, pushed a lot of more abilities around spying and wiretapping. Then in 2013 was when Edward Snowden revealed what they revealed that also got a lot of folks up in arms about we should encrypt data more locally because some of the tech groups didn't even realize that the government was essentially tapped into their systems. And then that kind of reinvigorated a lot of the encryption data at rest conversations. And so like all of these are related in some way. And then, like I said, 2024, we got the typhoon stories for the wiretap system. So it's kind of the prophecy that everyone feared coming true is TLDR of that.
So the article, if I remember correctly, was fairly vague in terms of like the volume of data that
It's
has been absconded with.
everything that I've been able to find on this particular story with the Salt Typhoon has been vague. I don't know if anyone has actual information that's actionable on this. Please do share or flag it. But I'm convinced it doesn't. Well, I'm sure it exists but it's not being shared widely. And we see like my first thought for a lot of this stuff when it was first coming out was at Gray Noise, we have sensors that mimic or that are monitoring for like D-Link and some home router exploitations and stuff like that. And those have been on the rise of late. And so my very first thought was thinking towards those routers, home routers, whatever, with some of the early Typhoon stuff. This is obviously happening in equipment that organizations don't typically have or have access to. So it's by quantity, it's probably the N is very small, but the impact is massive, right? So it's either unknowable or not yet known, or the scope is so big that they're still figuring out the scope essentially. So the very detailed information on this is extraordinarily hard to find, and it's kind of frustrating, but yeah.
It's incredibly frustrating because right now we have there are three kind of known typhoons: Salt, Flax, and Volt, and they're all kind of running together. And it's sort of like, how do we delineate between them? And like, I think back to, was it I don't even know what year it was, when Microsoft published the initial post about like Volt Typhoon, and it was just like, here you go, here's some vague hand wavy stuff about some stuff we've seen, no IOCs, we're not gonna we're just here you go. And it's like, well, how does anyone do anything with this? And even in some of the like more closed groups that I'm in, where there's more like free information sharing, it's still hard to come by. And it's just like, it's very frustrating as somebody who wants to go and like try and identify and hunt for these things. Like there's nothing, we don't have any actionable information. Like it's been so like closed. And I almost wonder if some of it too is because like I think it was Volt Typhoon, or which one was using the botnet, like the KB botnet or whatever. Like one of them had a botnet, one of them has been using different things, and it's like maybe that's the way we need to track it going forward. Like I don't know. And that's kind of an offshoot of this conversation, but I personally find that incredibly frustrating because it's like, how do we track any of this in a meaningful way?
My suspicion is, I think, based on conversations with the Intel community, that I don't know. I almost feel, my gut, this is my speculation, is that 99.9% of the folks learned about this all at the same time, the same way, which is through media. Um, it doesn't feel like the places that you can normally go to get a little bit of information or a breadcrumb or something to try and hunt down whatever, those normal paths are barren for information on this. So it feels like it was a surprise. Maybe it wasn't supposed to come out yet. Maybe there was an embargo. I don't know. But like, nonetheless, here we are. And so everyone is looking at this as, we know something really bad has happened. We don't know how to look or protect for it or mitigate that. And then also now it's going to, rightfully so, reinvigorate the debate around backdoors for government, which I went down a wormhole on that in a second. If we have time, I'll talk about. But backdoors mandated by governments, and which then goes back to, it wasn't even what 5-7 years ago when the FBI and iPhone and everything was all raging against each other because they want backdoors in phones. So basically, just backdoors in general. The governments want backdoors in everything. Um, Advocates for privacy are obviously against that, and so in 2 months we're going to be right back to heated debates on backdoors and encryption regulation, and that'll be fun.
Well, the UK, EU, and Australia are all having those heated debates right now.
Yes, that's one thing. So I didn't realize that Australia just recently had passed. Not that I follow like Australia um, laws closely, but when I was kind of doing some research on this story last night, so the UK had an attempt and then it pretty much kind of backed off a bit. But about the same time that the UK was introducing ghost legislation, which was their kind of version of a backdoor, Australia did as well. Australia is, I guess, like flew through or whatever, but it's technically required now for some backdoors as well. And honestly, that surprised me. Now, I don't know what that says about me. Maybe I just don't know enough about Australia's government, but it did surprise me that we still have Western governments that are like championing for this ability still to be new in 2024.
One question, and this is not a snarky question. I'm actually curious for Emily, because we often have fake battles over encryption. But would, yeah, fake-ish battles.
No,
I don't know.
I'm kidding.
I know. So this is theoretically a solution for this, right? I mean,
Encryption.
yeah, because like
Mhm.
it's a backdoor to get the network data, but in theory, if it was encrypted communications, in theory, it should be
Say it.
safe. It should be safe. In theory.
Yeah, in theory, sure. I- Was is there a question? Yes, I mean,
That I'm actually asking, like, do you actually believe that encryption would solve this problem?
it would solve this very specific problem potentially, but would it actually have stopped this kind of thing from happening? No. Like, I don't, it's kind of like that whole like, oh, cryptocurrency not existing would cause ransomware to go away. And it's like, no, that's not how that works. Like there would be other means, right? Like, do I think that in this particular case, it might have introduced a lot more hurdles and a lot more complexity to the task of getting to these systems and this data? Yeah, very likely. But when you're dealing with an actor that is, arguably state affiliated or what have you, like they're going to find a way. And I don't think necessarily that like, you know, um, I don't know. I'm not optimistic about saying that sure it would solve the problem entirely because I'm not that optimistic.
Todd
And
just brought back a memory that
yeah,
I had memory hold the e-gold from back in the day. Holy cow, Todd! Thank you for that.
yeah.
I needed
I guess
that.
my take is like, with the right motivation, with the right incentive, an actor will always find a way.
Well, why are we talking? So 5 minutes ago, we are talking about like portals without authentication and uh, things without MFA, blah blah blah. Like all of these low hanging fruit. So how about we have the we will agree to have backdoors when that's the only way in. Because right now there are enough other vulnerabilities all over the place for governments to get what they need if they need it that badly. So,
Well,
That's kind of my
but
take as well.
like, you don't need this. You can just log in with go to
no,
have I've been
because
pwned,
this is
grab a
like this.
thing.
But then that's
This
like
but the,
CFAA and like, oh well,
yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, this is wiretapping. We're not we don't have
Sure,
to
I mean we're
abide
not
by
like,
rules. Like this is yeah, like you don't need backdoors. You have plenty. Your buffet, you're at an all you can eat buffet and you're asking for a menu. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think this is a security problem.
Well, I mean, someone left the keys to the back door unlocked, or open or available. That's part of the problem here.
And now, like, I haven't read this enough to speculate on it, but I'm gonna bring it up irresponsibly anyway. But now, like, I saw a thing this morning about
Well,
like,
wait, we do drop the occasional conspiracy theory, and
okay, well,
you're covered
someone
under that.
we disclaim
Occasional.
it right up front, We disclaim it.
someone is or I think it's China, at least according to the article, is saying this is actually a false flag, and we did this to ourselves, and this is just a distraction, or whatever. So, hey, we
Yet
love
another
popcorn
false
and
flag.
drama.
Yet another typhoon false flag. Is that what you're saying, Glenn?
Yeah, yeah, yet another. I think they're just mad about the typhoons. I'm mad about the typhoons. Actually, it's getting really confusing.
I think we're mad for we're mad and they're mad for different reasons. But yes, I think we can all collectively agree that like the typhoons are incredibly frustrating and annoying and vague.
Can we all just get along?
Nope, not happening.
Okay.
But what we can do is read about more cool security research, which is look at that transition. Did you that? Wow, I'm sorry. I'm bragging on my own transition. Anyway, Voncheck has not one, not two. Patrick, and I think it's Patrick for all of them. I don't know how you do this, Patrick, because like I think you got 3 blogs in a week. We have this
He
first
does have a
one.
lot of energy.
He does. He does. First one, I think I'm going in reverse order, but is the Voncheck exploited vulnerabilities report from September 24. They identified 78 CVs that were publicly disclosed for the first time as exploited in the wild. This is crazy town. They have great resources. You definitely need to go through this, and I want to get to the next one real quick too. One thing I've appreciated from Voncheck in their updates is they have this new initial access intelligence feature that they keep talking about, like that they keep doing reports on, and I really like that because we are all about initial access. That's one thing that we observe pretty much at Gray Noise, and we use their we get help from them in lots of ways to be able to do that. So that's one reason why I love them. And yet another typhoon talking about this here too. So definitely take a look at this to see like what is actually happening with some of these things and what they have support for. Because if you do need to worry about those things, they are a great place to go for it. And yet another type, like so many. Wow, you were right, Emily. This is stupid.
It's a
I'm sorry.
typhoon of typhoons.
Yeah, like what is the plural of like? Is it a gaggle of typhoons? Like
I think
what are
it's
they?
Typhoon A with like an AE. That's what I'm hoping. I don't want to use just plain old S at the end.
I like that. I like
Typhoon
that.
A.
What if typhoon is French, Bob? What's it sound like? Tell me.
I no, I that's well. What do you mean? Tell you like typhoon? It's like
I just want you to
French.
say it. Typhoon or whatever.
Typhoon. Oh, that. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's
I'm
what.
trying
Sorry,
to
I
call
didn't.
back to your Vonti joke, but
Typhoon. Anyway, that's what it
apparently
is.
you lost a brain
Yeah.
cell on your birthday.
I totally did. Yeah, I
To
lost
be
it
fair, I
last week.
wasn't following it either, so maybe we all collectively lost one because
Yeah, it's one of those
It's
things.
possible it's just me.
This one is a fun report as well too. Oh no, so this is Mr. Baines. This is Sir Baines, which is cool. So Patrick doesn't do all the heavy lifting over there. This is from last week. We had no show last week because of Granite's offsite, and definitely need to take a look at this one too to learn all about the CVE that was used in the campaign. Uh, I, I don't know, like I think Voncheck should be putting up like maps and charts from you guys, not the other place, but that's just my own opinion about that. Maybe they could change how they work on that. I don't know. And we have the final of our 4-part series on protecting democracy, and in the digital cyber sense of that. And this is from the growing threat of deepfakes and disinformation. I got very lucky with this one in that Senator Warner did a really cool letter that I was able to riff from and cite in here as well too, because Senator Warner's all over this stuff. I think he's a thorn in the side of lots and lots of folks out there, and both attackers and folks maybe in government itself too. So Sis has been busy, and we have not yet talked about. I'm going to bring this down for a second before we get close to the end. That Kev DOS from like 2 or 3 weeks ago, that was insane. Like how many like that? How, I mean, if there's any practitioners that are actually watching and can type, like how did that, like I'm curious how that affected everybody, because that was insane.
Yeah.
Yes, or am I crazy?
It sure was. I'm just
Um,
sorry. I just pulled up the like Kev dropped 3 more today, and one of them is the SolarWinds hard-coded
wait,
credential, which
to
I
today,
guess
because
Another
it's
like
one?
um
wait, or is that
it's
the
from this
Because
is what
wasn't
happens
there
when
a
pod.
hard-coded
Oh no, this
credential?
is from August. Yeah, they just added
Okay,
it
I
today.
was
yeah,
like, what
Yeah.
is happening over there?
yeah.
But there
So
should be no like I don't
I
know.
mean,
wow,
I don't know
sure.
issues.
I brought up Kev. I brought up Kev right at the beginning of the show to tap to the tab.
Unless
And
my
yeah, now
feed
and now there's an update. This is
okay.
insane. They're great. Like, but both like the fact that you were working with CISA to help take care of some of the medical things, and the fact that they're on top of all these things as well too. I'm just tickled at how awesome CISA keeps doing really great work in the cyberspace. The I guess the one thing I would add, and Todd, don't reply because you can't anyway. I am curious as to why all the CVEs from all the reports aren't in Kev. I am still confused as to why there could be CVs known to be exploited in the wild because a government agency said they were, yet they're not in Kev, and that little dysfunction is never going to not be interesting for me.
Well, remember they require proof, right? Like
But
an industry
it
report.
was in a government report, like,
Yeah, but I don't know that that is enough.
from an investigation done by government
I mean,
folks.
is there proof or is it just a report? You know what I mean? Like there are 48,000 branches of the government. Like I
Is
don't
that a
know.
precise number? Is that like an actual precision?
I think
I'm
there's
just
like
kidding. I'm
4802 or something.
I'm just kidding. I'm
There's
just kidding.
12 according to the office episodes.
So the one thing that I do want to call out from Kev this time around is the Fortinet multiple products format string vulnerability. And a better write-up for it is actually from our I guess friends. I mean, we don't work a lot with the folks over Watchtower, but I love what they do. And the super complex vulnerability in a super secure appliance in 2024 title just it made me smile. It just made me smile. And as I mentioned to my co-hosts, it gave me
Cause the hack is on. We're gonna vote secure. Cause the hack is on.
It's his birthday. We have to let him.
it's my birthday. You had to let me do it. Like Emily hates it when I do that,
That's his
but I
version
have
of
to
the
do it.
happy birthday song.
You know, I'm
Oh
there.
my gosh.
I'm the,
If Bob's family is watching, which sometimes they do, please, I don't know, but you have to just make that part of his day all day. Torture him with it all day.
So if you want to know a personal fun fact about birthday songs, the tradition we have in the fam is, do you guys know who They Might Be Giants are? I'm assuming you all know who they are. Yeah, so we play older. Like that's our happy birthday. We play older. So
And
we
now it
already
can be
have
that
a
and
music.
Fortinet.
Oh yeah, I mean, because you can dance to the Fortinet one, you can't dance to older. So
And we want to see Bob dance.
nobody wants to see Bob dance. Nobody.
Oh man.
Yeah. Well, you know what? We need to have a week off more often because we're done early or on time or whatever that might actually mean. I don't see. We have one more comment here. Uh, hold on. What is this? Oh, the Futurama wiki birthday slide. I'm gonna have to go to that because I don't watch Futurama. Um, yeah. So I'll have to do that too. Any parting thoughts from anybody?
Uh, I don't know. It's just everything stinks in cyber, and like there's so many good groups doing good things, but I know we come here each week and we're like, oh, this thing happened, this thing happened. But there is a lot of people making positive progress and doing better, but I don't know. I hate that it's like depressing every week. I wish it wasn't, and I guess sometimes it's not. But
I almost want to like have an addendum to all of my blogs now that's just like mental health resources.
Mhm.
Not even joking, because
Well,
like
I mean, think about it. We had no auth today. We had probably lost credentials to the backdoor keys, and we have yet another format string vulnerability in a critical security appliance, and that's on top of anything else we could have actually covered today. So, like, this is, I mean, it's why we all have jobs, but it's not great.
I,
I would be really curious. So I've parting thoughts, I guess. I've often wondered if understanding the intricacies and how bad a lot of these systems actually are prevents people in this industry from like getting help. Like, I don't want my data to be collected anywhere. I don't want anybody to know what I'm struggling with. I don't want that to be
oh
leaked. I don't want that.
yeah.
That's a whole, I don't know. Like, that is on my mind a lot when we talk about like mental health and security or any kind of like profession that's high stress to some degree. But us in particular, I wonder, like, the applications, the services, it's just a house of cards.
It's like saying, does a Boeing engineer fly Airbus only? Is
Yeah.
that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not saying that that's
Uh,
true. Don't sue me.
to maybe close on a
Yeah, yeah.
neutral
That's
or
a great
slightly
point.
positive note, Adrian also says, and this is so true. No one is required to report successes, and I that's a thing. Like almost never do we actually hear about the good stuff because no one talks about. And I think we had this. We had. At our offsite, we had someone come in. I'm not going to give all the details of the offsite. But we had an industry veteran come in, and like no one does report all the things they stopped. You only hear about the breaches folks
Yeah.
have out there because no one wants to tell you they had those things. I think is more of a secret keeping than anything else. So all of our intel biases is on failures all the time. It's a terrible profession. I need to go back and tell my younger self to just not do this. I just need to not.
I mean, the
Uh,
fact that we can go a day without a report sometimes, I mean, that might be a win, right? Like that might be where we are. That might be a win based on the exposures, the technology, the number of people online. Um, And another like just key tip for organizations that want to build trust, when you talk about those successes and those wins and those blocks, you build trust with your users and your community so that when you do have that breach, which you will, you're coming from a place of trust and not already, kind of in the negative. So there's also some incentive. You have to kind of think about it in a meta way, but there's much incentive to talk about those wins as they come along and not just about the breaches. But I get it. We're busy.
and I am going to close on a more negative and downbeat, just to challenge Todd here. So it's a funny thing Todd just posted, but it could work, but it won't. So that's why I'm introducing. He's not he doesn't represent anybody. He's in CISA,
I'd
but
vote for Todd.
that's why I'm introducing a bill to require quarterly SEC filings to state you had no breaches. If that ever became a thing, Todd, what would happen is we would. So now that I keep threatening
I
to
know what Bob's gonna say. I know what Bob's gonna say.
so I keep threatening to do a segment on this because there's a steady decline in the number of public companies because we have relaxed the funding model for private corporations, which means they can pretty much get as much money as they want without any oversight at all whatsoever. And the more punishing that the SEC regulations come in at, that one right there, you'd have no public companies in the US. Boom, they would all just go private. because the companies would rather do bad things than actually
I hate that you're right on this.
so good. We ended on a negative, terrible note. This is great. That's the show.
To be fair, even if this podcast was about like goose farming, knowing us, we'd still find a way to make it negative and depressing.
Oh, good. No, you don't. Wow, we could. Like, I know. Never mind. We won't do that. So
Next week, goose farming.
So, cyber warriors, that's all the bits and bytes we have time to decrypt today. Remember, whether you're securing DICOM servers or dodging the Chinese hackers, always keep your firewalls high and your VPNs incognito. And hey, if you're feeling exposed like those healthcare IoHT devices, just slap on some digital band-aids and hope for the best. This is Grey Noise Stormwatch signing off. Stay vigilant, keep your data close, and your encryption key is closer. Until next time, may your networks be quiet and your logs be bot free. Catch you next week, everybody.